Rozier has had a less than stellar start to his full year with the Miami Heat. Bam Adebayo has struggled offensively to find his footing, and Duncan Robinson has actually had a very good season so far, shooting just under 40% from the three-point line at 38% on almost 6 attempts from the field. All three of these players could be involved in some way or another in acquiring an underrated star and a very elite role player from a fellow Eastern Conference team. My name is Manuel Buroz, and I'm going to talk about who that person is, what problem they could help in solving, and again, who the opportunity that could arise from this scenario here in front of us. Now, the problem that I'm talking about is something that all Heat fans know. It's the Bam Adebayo problem. And what I mean by that is Bam Adebayo this season has not had a bad season by any stretch of the imagination. I'm not going to sit here and tell you guys that Bam is just underperforming and not being who he is. He's been exactly who he's supposed to be and more than, 10 rebounds per game, 5 assists, 1.2 steals, just under a block a game, 35 minutes of play. He's been available. He's been aggressive on offense. Again, 33% from the three-point line, 44% from the field. What I would love to see, though, 16 points. Lock, a team that could maybe get out of the first round and make some noise in the Eastern Conference. Bam's got to put up 20 points per game minimum. That's the minimum. I would like it to actually be higher, but that's the minimum for him to do that. How can we do that? Well, we've all, thrown mud at the wall to try and see what sticks with this situation, but we can all agree that if Bam is at the 4, I think, and we all think, that would give him the best opportunity to be just less pressure on defense, less pressure on doing the other things of, kind of covering for other people's mistakes on that side of the ball. And now on offense, we can be aggressive. We're not just putting him down the dunker spot, putting him in the block situation. He's not really a back to the basket type of big anyways. He's more of a 4 who can put on the ground and play make for others. How do we get him to that 4 spot? In-house, the easy answer, Khalil Ware. We give him minutes, whether it's a starting job, whether it's off the bench, and then you move Bam to the 4 after the lineup, after the first few minutes of play. Right now, that's not the situation in front of us. We have a situation where Khalil Ware is in the G League, and he's got to get reps and get the trust from the organization, which is understandably so. So what does that mean? The solution that I'm looking at is actually a trade where, according to the reports from Hot Hoops, Nikola Vucevic, he has been linked to the Miami Heat. He's putting up 21 points per game, 9 rebounds, 3 assists, shooting 58% from the field, and a career-high 48% from 3 on almost 5 attempts. That is a very efficient number for a stretch 5 at his age and at his point in his career. One of the first, transitional stretch 5s with him and Brook Lopez. They were back to the basket type of post players. Now they can stretch it out and be a real threat from the three-point line. You see right there in the report from NBA Trade Report, Miami Heat have shown extreme interest in Chicago big man Nikola Vucevic. Team would prefer to slide Bam Adebayo to the power forward position, and obviously Vuce would be the starting 5. What does that look like? How does a trade for the Miami Heat with the Chicago Bulls look for to get Vuce? This is the trade that I think works for everybody, and I'll break it down as to why. On the Bulls side, if you're the Bulls, if I'm the Bulls owner or I'm the Bulls GM, I know my team is not a championship team. I know my team's not even really a playoff team. I believe right now they're 9th or 10th in the conference. That means to make a trade at this point, I'm either looking to get a young player, to get assets in the draft, or to get cheaper and get less expensive. That can be done either with less years, less money. Nikola Vucevic for Duncan Robinson checks both of those boxes. I do think there might be a trade thrown in there, maybe a second rounder. I don't necessarily think you need it, though, because, again, if we break it down by this, you're basically giving the Bulls a 1-year rental of Duncan Robinson. If he has a good year, you could maybe flip him, sign and trade him, or you just let him walk in free agency. It's not going to be the end of the world for the Bulls. Meanwhile, you're taking on a 2-year, $20 million contract off of their books, and you open up their salary for offseason if they want to go re-sign some of their young guys, if they want to go pick up a young guy that they think has good upside and could help them. Whatever they want to go, you give them the opportunity. We talk about Bam and himself. You add in a player on the offensive side of the ball where Vuce can be someone you can throw the ball down in the low post and teams have to respect it. You're not just telling him to be in the dunker spot and go catch lobs and get offensive rebounds. You can play a legit 5-out situation here. You can have a pick and roll, pick and pop between him, Bam, him, and Tyler. You also throw Jimmy in there. Jimmy can now play that low post, mid, short corner, elbow area where he loves to operate with the live dribble. This opens up your offense so much so that I think is a done deal if this trade can kind of just flourish out naturally, whether either side is the one that comes to the table first. I did add in another trade. I'm not as high on this trade specifically because, like I mentioned, if you're going to do this and you're not giving them a young player or assets, you can't make them more expensive. And that's what this trade does. Vooch for Terry Rozier, same number of years and more money from Terry Rozier. But this can lead to something, and I'll show you guys what I mean by that in a minute here, because I believe there's an opportunity with this trade that I just showed on the screen. The opportunity is that if Terry Rozier becomes somebody that the Bulls are not against acquiring, then the Miami Heat should try and get Ayo Dosunmu with Vooch in this trade. Big picture. In the summary, you are gaining or taking 4 years off of the Bulls' contracts, off their books, because Vooch and Ayo make 2 years apiece. And you're giving them back a 2-year deal with Terry, but you're also giving them a 1-year deal in Josh Richardson. The money's about the same. Yes, it's a little bit more expensive on the Bulls side after the trade because Terry and Josh don't actually add up to $27 million exactly like Vooch and Ayo do, but it's close enough to where you're not necessarily going to be in hindrance this season. And like I said, Josh Richardson is going to be an expiring deal. He's gone in free agency. Terry Rozier, if you keep him, that's fine. If you can flip him in the offseason, you can flip him next year. I'm sure he's going to get some trade value from somebody out there. The reason I think the Heat can pull off getting Vooch and Ayo right now, I've loved him when he was in Illinois playing college. I loved him coming out of the draft. I didn't think he would be a high draft pick, but I understood why. I understood that he didn't necessarily pass the eye test. The eye test from his perspective of, aside from the physical attributes, he's got good size, he's very athletic, he's got good wingspan, he's a good guard. He's a very defensive-minded guard, which I think is why he'll fit well in Miami. But what he's suffering from right now is there's a log jam of guards in Chicago. You have Zach LaVine. You have Lonzo Ball, who just came back. You have Kobe White, who I think the Bulls are in love with, and they're not going to trade off of him either. You have Josh Giddey, who they just signed. So he wouldn't be your fifth guard. I don't think he's the fifth on the depth chart, because when we look at the numbers here for Ayo specifically, putting up 12 points per game in 30 minutes of play. He's almost playing starters minutes. I'd probably say he's the first or second player off the bench with 30.4 minutes per game. But he can do more. I firmly believe if he comes to Miami and you give him a starting spot, maybe not right away, maybe you throw Jaime in there to start, or you try to figure out another way to ease him into the system and into the team without giving him that starting nod right away. But I do think eventually a backcourt of Tyler and Ayo is actually an underrated backcourt, because you now have Ayo, who can be the defensive-minded guard in that backcourt, not a liability on offense at all. And you flip it, Tyler's not a liability on defense anymore. He's much better defender than he was when he first came into the league. And obviously, the offense is what we're looking for from him, especially if he continues to have the year that he's had so far. You still have Jimmy. You bring in Vooch. You have Bam. You keep a Jaime. You keep Duncan. You keep Drew Smith. You keep all these young guys, or all these guys who have contributed this year, plus some vets like Kevin Love. Miami now becomes, in my opinion, with this trade specifically, if we talk about specifically Ayo and Vooch, I think this trade locks us in for a top 5. Other part of doing this trade, it helps now and in the future, because understand that I don't have to harp on that now. We've talked about it enough for now until there's new updates. But this trade doesn't hurt us in the future, but it gives us some good direction this year. Ayu's a young guard. He can fit the timeline of Tyler and Jaime, and even Khalil Ware, if you want to throw that in there. Bam, if you want to throw that in there. Nikola Vucevic, while he's a little bit older, obviously, he's not going to be somebody who's going to age bad because of that jumper. As long as that jumper stays relatively consistent, you can have a long year. Look at Kevin Love, same thing. Kevin Love is, well past his athletic prime, but because he's such an offensive-minded, because he has such a good ability to contribute on the offensive side of the ball with his jumper and his ability to stretch the floor, he will always have minutes. Maybe not the minutes he used to have, but he will always be able to contribute to a team. I think an IU for Vooch trade, an IU and Vooch trade for Terry Rozier and Josh Richardson is a home run steal. I do think a Nikola Vucevic for Duncan Robinson trade also is something that the Heat could look into, and I think they will look into it, if I'm being honest. I think it's something that you would maybe revisit, not now, maybe in a month or so, in a couple of weeks when Christmas comes around, and we really got to say, okay, we got to make a move here. It's got to happen now, because if we wait too long, someone's going to pick up on Vooch. Someone's going to try their hand at Ayo Dosunmu, because I don't think the Bulls are asking for too much from either one of them, because they want to get off contracts and they want to open up some book space for the future. With that being said, let me know down in the comments, do you like Vooch and for Duncan? Do you like Vooch and Ayo on the team? If we can trade, maybe not necessarily the trade that I made up with, but trying to get those two on the team to help for the future as well as for right now? Or is there another trade out there that could maybe help the Heat give Bam more of an offensive responsibility and give him more opportunity on that side of the ball? You guys in the next episode of Heat Digest.